Which celebrity went on the fastest, hardest and most destructive downwards spiral from their peak? Aaron Hernandez. Played tight end for the New England Patriots. Fresh off a new contract. Killed his friend. Found guilty. Then took his own life during the appeal. I mean, Oscar Pistorius was a pretty sharp fall from Paralympian champion, role model to spouse murderer. Kurt Cobain. Formed Nirvana in '87. And went from playing record store gigs and dive bars in the late '80s to putting out Nevermind. A record that knocked Michael Jackson out of the #1 spot in Jan of '92. Back then, something like that was unheard of and considered impossible in the industry. For the next couple of years Nirvana were arguably one of the biggest and most popular rock bands in the world. But Cobain was already thinking of ways to essentially sabotage the band's popularity because he was so uncomfortable with how famous they got while dealing with his own inner demons and drug addiction. They performed at the Reading Festival in '92 in what many consider one of the great live rock performances of all time, put out their second major studio album, In Utero, in February of '93. That went to #1 instantly despite the record company originally thinking it was unreleasable, and some major retailers refusing to sell it due to the album art and the song, Rape Me. Performed their iconic MTV Unplugged set in November of '93. Despite Cobain being in the heavy throes of heroin addiction and them not knowing if he'd be able to perform until showtime. In March of '94 he intentionally odded in Rome while on a European tour. Came back home. Went to rehab for a couple of days. Hopped the fence. And week later he blew his head off with a shotgun. Nirvana has sold over 75 million records worldwide despite only being a band for less than 7 years. And only releasing essentially 2 major label albums. Nevermind and In Utero. 1 indie album. Bleach. 1 album of B-sides. Incesticide. The MTV Unplugged album and a Greatest Hits album. Nirvana. I'd say that qualifies as a pretty destructive downward spiral. Especially considering their ascent was so rapid as well. The Hollywood of yesteryear had more than its fair share of career implosions such as Fatty Arbuckle and Harry Langdon, but few can match Wallace Reed. Described as the screen's most perfect lover. He was an all-round athlete and musician who wanted to move from theater to film. He approached Vitagraph Studios with a story hoping he could direct it, but the studio jumped on the opportunity to cast the 6-foot blue-eyed Reed as a matinee idol. By 1922, he had appeared in nearly 200 pictures and even tried out for the Indy 500. Reed was hiding a secret, however. In 1919, he had been involved in a train wreck and was prescribed morphine for his injuries. As the pressure of stardom grew, he rapidly became addicted, regularly spending $1,000 on morphine, but audiences noticed his rapid weight loss and gaunt features. He collapsed on set in October 1922 and was sent to a sanatorium where he was locked in a padded cell as he tried to detox. He died of influenza on January 19, 1923, and his death was a huge shock to the public. The first celebrity drug death. Jared Fogle. The subway guy. The things discovered about him are quite disturbing. Prison is an appropriate place for him. Chris Benoit. World-famous and beloved wrestler who committed a double homicide. Son and wife. Suicide. I would have to say Whitney Houston. I suspect many people here were either not alive or too young to remember how insanely big Houston was. She was literally the biggest female artist in the world and one of the biggest artists And this was before social media. She holds the record for having 7 consecutive #1 singles on the Billboard Top 100. Record sales of over 200 million. A host of awards including 28 Guinness World Records. The only other artist that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Whitney in regards to success would be Michael Jackson. However, between 2000 to 2005 her entire career and life completely disintegrated. Her marriage to Bobby Brown. Her addiction to crack. The car crash that was her own reality TV show utterly destroyed her career. She attempted a comeback in 2009-10 by doing a world tour, but it was painful to watch, to say the least. She was unable to hit high notes. She no longer had the range she had. Many performances were cancelled. I think it was one in Australia which was an utter car crash. She made the audience wait for hours, and when she did appear she simply couldn't sing. Pretty much everyone booed her and she GTFO in a very short time. The general consensus was her tour was a major flop. She tried to come back a couple times afterwards, but she never got even close to her former glory. I have never seen somebody who arguably was the world's biggest artist fall so hard and fast as Whitney Houston. Jan Michael Vincent of Airwolf fame. His alcohol and drug abuse ruined a promising career and turned him into walking mummy towards the end. Edit. All the whoa. This guy was real. Comments made me feel really old. Chris Benoit. I may not be a wrestling fan anymore, but damn, what a tragedy.